the paint off a couple of screens. Esquivel to Garcia. Off the deflection. Los Fresnos comes back and wins. Santa Maria will put up a three. Bang! Santa Maria!
Here's Warner. Here comes a head of the jam. Counted for two. Field. Adios! And the Falcons win on a walk-off. And it's saved. What a game.
Smack to the left. That is gone.
Lob for Perez. That's my play. Off the backboard. Counting and a win. And a win. Ryan Perez wins the game for the Santa Rosa Warriors, and they go nuts. And why not?
Welcome one and all once again to the Luke Freya Show in a different location, though, of course. This time we're not actually there, and, well, it's going to be an interesting, of course, show either way because, of course, well, this weekend is the first round of playoffs for high school football. We have the first week, really, of basketball for girls basketball, to be exact. Boys basketball, I think, starts in a week, which is very exciting in that realm of things, to be exact. And then the most shocking turn of events, at least for me, I expected, well, there to not be any football coverage from here on out for Rio Sports Live Network. Well, it ended up changing a bit for that note exactly, which is very exciting, very cool, that we were able to get some rights for some football games. Unfortunately for myself, I won't be a part of, I believe, any of those due to the fact of we'll be out of town this weekend, which will be very exciting. Of course, the South Carolina football game, South Carolina Texas A&M football game happened to be at 11 a.m., which is still exciting, but due to, of course, that time, instead of a 2:30 p.m. kickoff or anything like that, or even in the evening time around 6 p.m., instead of just due to time constraints, basically have to leave at Friday so that I'm not crunched for time in the morning, have to wake up at, 2 a.m. or anything of that sorts, to be exact. And so, yes, of course, no playoff football for myself, at least for this round. Not that big of a deal. Looking forward to covering basketball and, of course, soccer from here on out for the season, at least for myself. And that's kind of what we expect to see. As we expected that, of course, how we like to start off the show always is the exact thing of, well, of course, what games will be covered this week or the rest of this weekend for Rio Sports Live Network. We go down to it. And for myself, let's see here. The games that will be covered for RSL this weekend are a lot of big games in general, which is something that I didn't expect to see. Something that I'm very excited for, that RSL get the coverage, is, well, we start off with, of course, the Thursday night football games, which is pretty interesting indeed. We have Edinburgh High taking on Brownsville Vets. That is going to be covered. We don't have an announcer just yet for that game, but it's good to go. That'll be on the BIC channel. And then on top of that, after that game, Mission Vets and Mission High. Check that, Mission Vets and Brownsville Board. For Brownsville Pace, check that. That is on Thursday night. That will be at Mission. And we will have that game covered. All those games will be starting at 7 p.m. Broadcast time will probably begin at 6:30 like we have been throughout the regular season, if I had to say so myself. I mean, they're playoff games, so I'd hope that we'd have half an hour of a pregame show in general for those playoff games. I wouldn't expect anything to change otherwise. So you have, of course, the Mission Vets and Brownsville Pace game, as well as the Sherryland High and Brownsville Porter game. That will be at Sherryland High. As it stands, of course, we're waiting for the rights on that game. Most likely we will get them, but if not, I would expect Joe Bowling to move over to the Edinburgh High and Brownsville Vets football game. We move down to it, of course. Friday night, we have a lot of big games. 2 7 p.m. games, kickoff time, and 1 7:30. The first 7 p.m. kickoff time game would be Los Fresnos, the Falcons, taking on Edinburgh Economies. That is at Los Fresnos, to be exact. That should be a great game. It will be covered by Nacho. He is a fantastic announcer. If you want to watch that game, tune in. Of course, that's going to be on the RSL 1 channel. And then, of course, Harlingen South and McAllen Memorial face off at DQ Fan Field, McAllen Veterans Memorial Stadium. Again, did not expect for RSL to even remotely get the rights to that game due to the fact of McAllen ISD getting the rights to those games. And, I mean, there's no need for two companies to really be getting those coverages, and, of course, my eyes. And thankfully for RSL, we got that coverage. Of course, I'm sure McAllen ISD also got it too, since it is their home stadium and they're the ISD and all that fun stuff. But who knows, they could be over to go cover none other than Flower Bluff. But Flower Bluff or Corpus Christi ISD, I'm sure, have the rights to that game, or Flower Bluff or whoever, of course. I'm just going to check and see, because sometimes, especially on YouTube, for McAllen ISD, they already have the games that are coming up for themselves to cover. And if I would have to say so, or have to take a guess, is yes, the upcoming game, they will be covering it, the by-district round, this upcoming Friday. And so, yeah, it's interesting. McAllen ISD get the rights, of course, and also Rio Sports Live get the rights. So it's very cool. I'm sure it'll be a different story, especially on Fridays. I remember back in the day when the first year that I was here, the rules were a lot stricter, to be exact. And even for the playoffs, we could only show the game the day after. So we had a radio broadcast, basically. That would be interesting, especially for Friday, if that rule is implemented once again. At McAllen Veterans Memorial Stadium with the new press box, we are set up in that room, to be exact. That is the radio broadcast room. And so, of course, I wouldn't be too shocked if it's audio only, but who knows? It's probably also video, which is very nice too. So you go back to it. Those are your games for playoffs. The last one, Ed Couch Elsa and Sherryland Pioneer. That one, I believe, in Ed Couch Elsa. Yes, indeed. So, yes, Ed Couch Elsa. They're waiting for the rights for that game, but for the meantime, we have two games right now that have been greenlit for playoffs on Friday. That's one game at 7 p.m., one game at 7:30, and if we get another one that's at Ed Couch, that would also be at 7 p.m. as well. Those would be the three games for Friday for playoff football. So very exciting. Once again, that Rio Sports Live Network, they're able to get the coverage of playoff football, and thankfully for themselves, being able to do exactly that. We move on. With, of course, that being said, let's talk about how all these teams, especially that we're covering, ended up getting to the playoffs. For McAllen Memorial High School, they won their district outright, which was pretty interesting. Of course, all they had to do was, in the end, defeat none other than McAllen Rowe, but they defeated them in triple overtime. And that was a big deal for McAllen Rowe because it left that district open for that final spot, which would have been, in the way that everything worked out. McAllen High School, the day prior to that, 2 weeks ago, 2 Thursdays ago to be exact, won their game against La Jolla Waters Lincoln. Clinched, check that, against Mission High School. Clinched their spot in the playoffs. At that time, I thought that Mission High School were eliminated with a loss there just due to, of course, head-to-head. Boy, was I wrong. Because in the week leading up to the next one, of course, yes, McAllen High have that victory. They were locked in. So with that, they were locked into the third seed in district. Or truly, check that, locked into the playoffs. They were not locked into that third seed or anything like that. I guess depending on who ended up winning outright and all that fun stuff, they kind of did have third place on a lock for a couple of scenarios. The one scenario where they'd have third place on lock is if Palmview would make the playoffs. Mission High School, even with that loss, just needed a ton of help to happen. Every situation that needed to happen was as followed. Mission High School, they needed to win at home at Tom Landry Stadium on that Thursday. After they would get a victory on that Thursday, they would need Palmview to lose at home against McAllen Memorial High School. They would need Nicky Rowe to lose, and they'd make the playoffs. If one of those teams won, they would make the playoffs. If the other team, of course, lost. Nicky Rowe were not the favorites at home to win that game, considering how hot of a team the Mackay Bulldogs had been. Turns out it was an interesting game that Friday. Coming over to, of course, DQ Fan Field at McAllen Veterans Memorial Stadium for what I thought was going to be one final time, at least most likely for football season, would be for myself. Like we mentioned, the Mackay Bulldogs, they got the victory. What needed to happen was, of course, like we mentioned, for that game particularly, the Road Warriors still had one thing on their mind. A win and you're in. A loss and you're out. As for the other side, the Mackay Bulldogs, a win, you secure third place. A loss, you're in the playoffs, but you're going to have to be fourth place due to the head-to-head, and Nicky Rowe will take over that third spot. But it will be all McAllen schools that will make it to the playoffs for the first time in about a year or two, which would be very interesting indeed, because the Mackay Bulldogs have missed the playoffs. They missed the playoffs last year, to be exact. The Nicky Rowe Warriors, I think, have also missed the playoffs in a couple of years. It's been very difficult to get all three teams into the playoffs, to say the least. But as we mentioned before, there was still a high chance that that could happen. But things kind of changed. McAllen Memorial were struggling against the Palmview Lobos. For the Palmview Lobos, they still needed Nicky Rowe to lose in order to have a chance at the playoffs, as well as, of course, win their game. So they needed some help from the Mackay Bulldogs as well. For a while, the Palmview Lobos were actually up on the Mustangs, but the Mustangs prevailed, winning, I believe, 26-21 was your final. It was a kind of crazy into that game, as well as, of course, back at McAllen Veterans Memorial Stadium, where the Mackay Bulldogs found themselves down early. It was 7-3 early on in the game, and it was kind of a stagnant first quarter, kind of a stagnant first half. And then McAllen High School were able to score right before halftime, making it 9-7. They would get the ball right back, I believe, to start that second half. Check that. The Rowe Warriors actually got to start the second half with the possession. Were trying to score, could not. And this is where all the game really changed. The McAllen Rowe Warriors had a chance to score, and they get blocked on the 1 yard line. Tried for almost sort of a tush push is really what I believe they were aiming for. It's at the 1 yard line, the 1 inch yard line, basically. And Rowe thought that they could score. Gonzalez pushes his way through, trying to, and just the Mackay Bulldogs, you could tell that they were ready. They didn't jump offside or anything like that, but they timed it perfectly for the head start of making sure that Garza did not get past that line into the end zone, did not cross the plane, and he did not. And all of a sudden it stays at the score, and then McAllen High School, they score a touchdown, and then all of a sudden that 9-7 game ends up being 16-7. McAllen Rowe are driving down the field. Then Garza throws an interception. That's taken the other way for a pick six. Your final score, 23-7. McAllen High School win, and they get the third seed, and they're in. Again, we wait for that final score on the other end, and that final score happened around the same time that this final score did for the Mackay Bulldogs versus the Nicky Rowe Warriors game. And the Palmview Lobos lose in the craziest way possible. Well, not in the craziest way possible, but in the craziest turn of events. Mission High School make it to the playoffs to face PSA North on the road this upcoming Friday. Wild stuff for the just laying it all out there. That is what ended up happening. That's how that side of the district happened. Of course, I'll look at the other side, the PSA North District, the Flower Bluff District, the Harlingen South Cardinal District. Check that. Harlingen South Hawk District. Because that other district as well, with the Harlingen High Cardinals in the 6A, that was a little more tame district in a way. The way that everything happened for themselves. Your four teams, of course, though, in the 5A district that are for by district, that will be playing against all these teams. PSA North won district outright. They beat Flower Bluff, of course, and then finishing off an undefeated district season. Then you move on, of course, to second place. That's Flower Bluff. Flower Bluff, their only loss, of course, in district play, happened to be to none other than the PSA North Raiders. So 1v4, of course, PSA North playing against Mission High School. Flower Bluff will be playing against the Mackay Bulldogs. Third place were the Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial. I believe Patriots, or point is Veterans Memorial. Corpus Christi Vets, they will be facing off against second place Edinburgh Villa. We didn't really talk about them much because they had themselves locked in the playoffs too. There was no way that they were going to win district because it was already done. So they had already locked themselves into the second spot. They just had to win. They won their game easily too. So they were one of two teams really that didn't have anything to play for. I guess really McAllen Memorial had one more thing to play for, an undefeated season on top of keeping one of their city rivals out from making the playoffs too. So that was, a possibility right there. Or just keeping a team that they were playing against out from the playoffs too. So that, of course, ended up happening. So that's, of course, who second is playing third in that district. And fourth place is Harlingen South. They'll be facing off against none other than McAllen Memorial this Friday. Should be an exciting one. And it really should be. I'm looking forward to it. We may break that down in a bit. We still have much to talk about because basketball season started last night. So we'll talk a little bit about that before we really go and dive fully into talking about these playoff matchups in by district. So we're going to take a break. I'm Jacob Young. This is Real Sports Live Network. Stay tuned.
Elevation, AT4, AT4X, Denali. Case closed. For your GMC, we're professional grade.
Rev up your future with Texas Southmost College's Auto Body Repair Program. In just 2 semesters, you'll gain the skills to become an auto body repair specialist. Learn using industry-standard iCar Academy to get you job-ready fast. If you're ready to drive your career forward, TSC's Auto Body Repair Program is the place to start. Classes are filling fast, so visit tsc.edu and apply today. Turn your passion into a powerful career at Texas Southmost College. Our automotive technology program will train you in everything from maintenance to full vehicle systems repair. Earn a certificate or associate degree and get certified to work as a C maintenance or B-level technician. You'll be guided by seasoned instructors who have decades of real-world automotive experience, helping you get ready to roll into the industry. So take the wheel and apply today at tsc.edu.
No matter where you are in life, Texas Southmost College is here to help you move forward. Whether you're starting fresh, changing careers, or gaining new skills, TSC has affordable programs designed to fit your goals. It's time to take the next step. Think big. Think bright. Think TSC.
This summer, settle in and reconnect with one another. South Padre Island has so many great places to stay. Condos, resorts, and hotels. Oh my! Book your summer getaway today. And start making memories poolside with the people you care about most. Visit SoPadre.com.
Back we go once again here. We had about 3 games, of course, for basketball covered, but back here on the Luke Freya Show, talking sports. I'm Jacob Young. This is Rio Sports Live Network. We have a great show, of course. The first half of it was very nice, but the second half, it's going to be even better, of course. Breaking down, of course, the playoff games that we'll be able to cover. And then, of course, talking about none other than the basketball games here this past day, which was very exciting. We'll get into both of those, really all of them, right this second. Of course, basketball season started, and there was really some things, of course, to bring up. Was how were a lot of these teams kind of ready for this season? What were we going to expect? And that is also, of course, a fun part about tournaments sometimes, and even a lot of times, for that just side of things. Because, of course, you have the not necessarily, well, you just get to see a lot more teams and how they face off against, let's say, for example, the 4A teams facing off against 5A teams or 6A teams, and they're pretty talented in general, and they give them a run for their money in the tournaments. And then you get to see, of course, some teams that are not necessarily in the same district, but then a by-district matchup that you'd only see in in the playoffs. And then you get to kind of test, okay, where is this team at compared to this team right now? And there are some teams that, yes, they have their full starters right now, but what happens if they miss one of them? What happens if one of them unfortunately has to sit out for a game or two due to an injury or anything like that. And you can see that early because there's also things that, of course, come up, especially around this time. You have the final kind of some players still getting ready for college, and so they take their ACT or their SAT, and one of the weekends that is only available for them to do it is the weekend of a tournament. And something, of course, of that sort, and on the Saturday that the team makes it, and then all of a sudden they have them eliminated or something like that, and not necessarily eliminated, but that one player isn't there, and so then you get to see, okay, how different is this team without that player? Sometimes it's a big margin, sometimes the gap is very small, where you have a player that's from the bench, gets to start that game, and then all of a sudden they're really good. So there's a lot of variables into tournaments like that, and it has benefited a lot of myself and others to see that. And I think it's one of the coolest things. Now, let me be clear. I sometimes still dread to cover tournaments because they just are so long and grueling. People don't think about it, but sometimes you don't necessarily get to take a break. And if you do, you take a game break or something like that, and it's fine. Then you got to do it for 3 more days. And so or 2 more days. And so it is a tough thing in a way, but it's still very fun to cover all these teams and good too. So all that ran, of course, to just say, of course, basketball season's back. And so we had some games this past evening. My game, of course, ended up being the best game of the season already. And of course, there's only, well, for most teams, 1 game down, a lot more to go. Or some teams have their second game. That was their second game last night or during the afternoon. Yes, of course, yesterday was none other than Veterans Day. And so one of the big things was in Brownsville, they had a game at 2:30 p.m. because there were not necessarily no fans or anything like that, but they didn't have school. And so on Veterans Day 4, I believe it was Porter and Hannah, Brownsville Hannah and Brownsville Porter, they faced off against each other, and it was a solid basketball game, to say the least, for Brownsville Hannah. Girls basketball, they figured out, or not figured out, but they got to start off their season on a high note with a big win. As for, of course, the game that I was getting to cover was McAllen Memorial. They took on none other than Edinburgh High School. I talked a little bit about it before during the pregame show that the week prior, or the Saturday prior to be exact, the McAllen Memorial girls basketball team, they got to play against none other than Brownsville Lopez. It was at Brownsville Lopez, if I'm not mistaken. And McAllen Memorial, they are a shooting team. They can, if given the opportunity, the way that they play, their playing style is very aggressive. They can dominate sometimes inside the paint, get a team in foul trouble. That's a key to themselves. And sure enough, they won 79-20 over Brownsville Lopez. That was their first game of the regular season. And then, of course, this Tuesday game was against the Edinburgh Lady Bobcats. It was at the Edinburgh Lady Bobcats, to be exact, and that is a fierce team as well. Of course, you're talking about a 6A team compared to a 5A school. 5A team, to be exact. It's not that big of a difference at all. And so McAllen Memorial, they start off the game slow and sluggish, and I'm saying to myself, this is interesting because this is a team that a week ago scored 79 points. Yes, it's against Brownsville Lopez. It's against a team that's not necessarily known to be a great basketball school in general, but that's not little points, especially in high school basketball. So this team has some skill, and they were not that impressive. The first quarter, I believe, only scoring 5 points or close to it. The second quarter wasn't necessarily any better. McAllen Memorial were only able to get up to 15 points. Edinburgh High School in that first half were able to dominate the paint, scoring points inside the paint, forcing turnovers against McAllen Memorial, where McAllen Memorial had no answer trying to pass the ball, and all of a sudden it gets stolen away. and then the fast break 2-point layup or kicks out for 3. Big players like Kira Poole for Edinburgh High School, as well as Olvetta and many others on that team, as well as Pettis as well. Those were key players for Edinburgh High School. They were able to move the ball around, finding that open look in the 3-ball. It was very similar playing styles in the sense of, well, Edinburgh High School in that first half just did it a lot better, and it showed. And Edinburgh High School were able to get McAllen Memorial sort of in foul trouble in that second quarter. What do I mean by that? Well, McAllen Memorial, they were up to 5 team fouls with themselves, and so Edinburgh High School, they got to go to the free throw line, and that was a big thing. Now, I bet you today in practice for McAllen Memorial, speaking about free throws, they were not hot in the first half for free throws, missing a lot of those when they had a chance to get points, missing 3-pointers or big, and just a lot of looks underneath the basket could not go their way in the first half. Credit again to really good defense from Edinburgh High School. Again, the turnovers were the true killer in the end. As for, of course, McAllen Memorial High School, though, at halftime, even their coach said, we're better than this. As, of course, I got to interview the player of the game, Aurora Gomez. She was a great player in the sense of, well, finding the open looks, getting the 2-pointer at the end of the game, and was really leading the offense very well, but just struggled early on in the game too. And so getting out in that second half for McAllen Memorial, cutting the lead down to a manageable deficit in the third quarter, all of a sudden, Edinburgh High School were struggling. Edinburgh High School were put in the back burner. They could not find their open looks. They could not make their open looks. That was the biggest thing. Missed 3-point opportunities, missed a couple of free throws, if I'm not mistaken, 2-pointers underneath the basket that they couldn't find, that they couldn't get, basically. McAllen Memorial, of course, they get fouled. They were starting to make their own free throws, even if it was 1 for 2 a couple of times. It added up fast, and the McAllen Memorial slowly but surely got hot from threes. They turned the ball over a lot less, and it turned into an instant classic. It was going to be a finish. I believe McAllen Memorial were down by 9 at the start of quarter number 4. They cut the lead all the way down, and then at close to the end of the game, here we go. 3-ball was good. McAllen Memorial, for the first time with 2 minutes left, they take the lead. And then the bigger thing, of course, right at the end of the game, McAllen Memorial foul. Edinburgh High goes to the free throw line, misses 1 free throw, makes the other, and it's a tie game. At that point, it was 51-49. No, that was the final score. But at that point, basically, we're talking about how close it was, and then it was all tied up. I believe at 44 was the final score in regulation. So we did head to an overtime period. And the first point scored by Edinburgh High School, and then McAllen Memorial were able to tie it right back up. Makes it 44, or makes it, I believe, 46 or something like that. Either way, back and forth, it looked like McAllen Memorial had it for a split second, then it would go right back to Edinburgh High. Very even overtime thriller once again. McAllen Memorial hits a big 3, I believe, check that. It was a 3-ball that was missed, but rebounded perfectly, lays it up. That's your 2-pointer. It's 51-49 at the moment. We're still talking about close to 2 minutes, or a little under 2 minutes to go, or a little under a minute to go, I think, at this point. Edinburgh High have the ball. They dribble it slowly. This is where things, I feel like, might have gone awry for the team, which is unfortunate for Edinburgh High School, but, I mean, they're a young team, so I think they will be able to work this out perfectly. For the future, of course, was just the clock management. Because They have just about under a minute to go, and then they take it down to 29 seconds. They call their first timeout. Then they inbound the ball once again, and it's down to 11 seconds. They call another timeout, didn't like what he was seeing. And then they call a third timeout with 2 seconds, inbounds the basketball, and it's turned over. That is your game. So just the in play right there, of course, and it will only happen so much, but that's one thing that Edinburgh High can get better at. And, of course, holding that lead, because that was a game that they should have won in the end. But, it's basketball. And so it was a very, very fun game to watch, to witness, to call, and all of that. And I'm looking forward to covering both of these two schools throughout their regular season, because there's going to be a lot of hype surrounding both of these two schools, both of these two teams on the girls' basketball side. I think they can go pretty far in my eyes. McAllen Memorial right now, their biggest in the 31-5A district. I think their biggest rivals will be probably Edinburgh Valley and Sherryland High School, because I've heard, of course, a lot of players didn't move over and they had their year or whatever, and now get to play for Sherryland High School. And they're a good stacked team. So those two schools, or those three schools, might be fighting for district, which is very exciting to see. And then, of course, on the other side for Edinburgh High School and Lady Bobcats, they'll have some competition, but I believe, in my eyes, that they'll be able to take care of business in that district and win district outright and then move on to the playoffs. They're that much of a successful team. They only have up from here, is what I'm trying to say. They will be growing as a team, so much so. And that's great. That's fantastic. I love it so much that I'm excited to see how it will all play out here in the basketball season. Didn't necessarily catch the rest of the games, but all I can say for sure is we'll just keep your eyes posted, because Valley girls basketball, or Valley basketball in general, I think will be pretty fun to watch. Up and, of course, till all the teams get eliminated in by district, or, of course, in the area rounds and so on. Unfortunately, it's still going to be the height that will stop a lot of these teams, but the skill is there, the talent is there, so I'm looking forward to all of this. Now, moving on. Like we mentioned, it is football season still. There are the playoffs coming up for McAllen, or for a lot of schools, of course. RSL Network have gotten the rights to cover a couple of playoff games this season. And so let's break down some big ones that will be looking really good, especially 2v3s normally are the keys in how great of a game they will be. But of course, you can never be too certain on who's going to end up winning and all that fun stuff. So we go from here. As for the first games, of course, we'll have Edinburgh High and Brownsville Vets. That game, as it stands, will be covered by myself. That's at Edinburgh High, or Edinburgh Richard R. Florida Stadium to be exact. That will be a playoff game. That will be covered. The other two, as well, of course, are Mission Vets and Cherryland High. Those are the locations of the games to be exact. So Mission Vets versus Brownsville Pace. That's still at Tom Landry to be exact. That one's going to be covered by Aaron Signs. And then at Cherryland High and Brownsville Porter, that game will be covered as well. They're still waiting on the rights. It's going to be very interesting. So we're going to take a quick little break. We'll be right back. Right after this, we'll break down, of course, the game. We'll wrap up here at around 3:05 and all that fun stuff. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
means a lot to me. TSC has changed me to make me realize that I can accomplish things. Just don't give up. I've come a long way from where I was to what I am now, and there's no limit to where I'm going.
Hello, sports fans. I'm Jason Starkey with Gallery Homes.
Here at Gallery, we make building your new home simple and stress-free. From sales to selections, we handle every step so you can enjoy the journey to your new home. This is Gallery, where your dreams become reality.
The standard of excellence has always been Cadillac, so be iconic and drive one. Free your Cadillac, Brownsville, Texas.
This summer, it's time to go outside and get some air. Explore a pirate ship. Or go horseback riding on the beach. And you can't forget about all the fun on the bay. South Padre Island has so much to do for the whole family. Book your summer getaway today. Visit SoPadre.com.
Rev up.
Back we go once again here. Be previewing a game, of course. It looks like I will be covering one of the playoff games once again. And interesting, of course, to look at. We'll wait and see how this one will go. But, of course, this one being previewed, this is Brownsville Veterans Memorial High School taking on Edinburgh High School. That will be at Richard R. Florida Stadium. That's at Thursday, November 13th at 7 p.m. to be exact. In breaking down this one, this is going to be very interesting because we have both teams, of course, seem very even. There were mistakes made by none other than, of course, Brownsville Vets throughout the season. They've had a couple of losses that they could have ended up winning games of. Lost to San Benito High School, all of a sudden, of course, puts Brownsville Veterans Memorial down to exactly in fourth. And so it was pretty interesting, of course, for their district because your district champs there were, in fact, the Los Fresnos Falcons. The Harlingen Cardinals finished second. San Benito finishes third. Brownsville Vets finished fourth. Brownsville Hannah just missing the playoffs. But it all comes down to it, and we all talk about it, of how, of course, Brownsville Vets just missed out on, they've had successful seasons, is what I'm trying to say. And their successful seasons have been from going to the state semis, having a difficult year last year. But they've struggled a bit in 6A, to say the least. This is their second year in 6A, and it's been a grind for them. As you're, of course, witnessing here, they say that, of course, Vets just made the playoffs, according to, of course, Max Preps. But as for the Edinburgh Bobcats, If I'm not mistaken, they didn't win district. So this actually may be a 3v2. That's exactly what it is. So Max Preps was wrong on the district. No worries there. 3v2, so it's going to be, of course, Brownsville Vets. They, like I mentioned, they struggled. This is a down year for themselves, if I had to say so myself. In a way, they expect to win the district almost every single year or be close to it. And, of course, those losses did not necessarily help them out in the slightest. And so that's kind of where we were going for it in general. And so we take a look at this game once again. For both sides, we preview it. As for the rushing yards a game and all of that, we just go to really the team rushing yards because this is key. Brownsville Vets love to run the football, down to 408.4 yards a game. As for the Bobcats, 107.1 rushing yards a game. Passing yards a game are pretty interesting because, well, Brownsville Vets, they don't necessarily love to pass the ball too much, according to, of course, Max Preps, 20.7 passing yards a game compared to 144.7 passing yards a game for the Bobcats. The receiving yards a game is about 19.2 for the Brownsville Veterans Memorial Patriots. As for the Bobcats, 141.9 receiving yards. The total yards a game are about 429.1 total yards for the Brownsville Veterans Memorial Patriots compared to the 251.8 total yards a game of Edinburgh High School. The Bobcats, really the key thing right now would be they just need their running defense to be key, and everything else for Edinburgh High School to be on top of things. That's the biggest thing, is getting a chance at a fantastic defensive pressure, getting to the running back, tackles for loss, shutting down that running attack, and making Brownsville Vets have to adjust to a passing game because we don't know how good Brownsville Vets are at really passing the football. I haven't covered them this season at all, and so I don't necessarily know too much. I believe I've covered Edinburgh High School this season. If not, it was just, of course, the Mercedes Tigers game. And so whoever they played against for the first game of their season, that was a thing. So the whole point is it's a lot of unknown areas for at least myself. But we'll wait and see. Looking forward to it, of course. Like we mentioned, tackles per game are pretty interesting, 77.8, so 78 tackles per game compared to the 69 tackles per game for the Bobcats of Edinburgh High School. 1.8 sacks a game, about 2 sacks a game for the Brownsville Veterans Memorial Patriots compared to 2 sacks a game for the Bobcats. Scoring averages this time, 9 points a game for Brownsville Veterans Memorial compared to about 5 points for the first quarter, I should say. 5 points for Edinburgh High. Second quarter is very interesting again. Brownsville Vets average about 10 points compared to Edinburgh High, 6 points. Then in the third quarter, 4 points in the third compared to just a field goal or just over a field goal for Edinburgh High School. Same with Edinburgh High School scoring about 3 points in the fourth quarter compared to 11 points for Brownsville Veterans Memorial. They put up points on the board is what we're trying to say here. 38 points on average compared to the 20 points on average for Edinburgh High School. That's the offensive power that Brownsville Vets have. But like I mentioned, if Edinburgh High School are able to stop that run, Brownsville Vets are in trouble. We've seen it before. We saw it before this season. That is the key. We'll see how it all plays out. I'm looking forward to it. Who knows how that game will play out? It's going to be a great one. As we all know, playoff games You can see a lot of upsets. That's one game that I would say could potentially be an upset alert in a way, is Brownsville Vets being eliminated and by district play by Edinburgh High School. Moving on to another one that could potentially be an upset alert as well. Remember, no Kane Coy still right now. As, of course, I say this could completely change. We could see him out on Friday against Harlingen South at home. But this is a game where it's a 1 seed versus a 4 seed. McAllen Memorial are that powerful of a team. But like we've seen, they've struggled twice this year against teams that are technically worse than them. And that was, of course, against the Row Warriors. And that was against Palmview, almost losing to Palmview there. Compared to their early season hype, where they were able to only, I believe, give up 3 or close to 7 points against the Mission Eagles and teams like that. Of course, we look at it exactly, and this is what I'm trying to say, and we'll compare this game, we'll compare them to, of course, Harlingen South. And now Harlingen South, reminder, almost beat PSJ North at PSJ North this season. There were a couple of things that just didn't go their way. A pick six right before halftime was a difference in that game. So it's not like Harlingen South are a bad football team. They are very, very good to where they can be that sleeper with the upset. Let's look at, of course, the schedule for McAllen Memorial. And what I mean by that, 37-14, giving up only 14 points against Brownsville Hanna, losing 31-24 against Wesco High School, losing 38-10 against San Antonio Johnson, but beating Rio Grande City High School 49-14. Beating Mission High School 43-14. Team that's in the playoffs, by the way. Beating McAllen High 35-21. This is where their woes kind of started. What do I mean by that? McAllen Memorial, they didn't really score a lot in the second half of play. They did end up scoring one of the, you can really, in a way, take one of those touchdowns away, 28-21, because McAllen Memorial were trying to do the right thing and kneel the ball, and the Mackay Bulldogs call a timeout. This was a key changing point in the scoreline. As, of course, the Mackay Bulldogs call a timeout off the knee. Their team was trying to hit their quarterback as well, and there wasn't a flag thrown or anything like that, but that really lit a fire under McAllen Memorial's belly in a way, and their team, because the next play they give the ball to Braxton Spates, and Braxton Spates takes it all the way to score. That's the truth. So McAllen Memorial really, in a way, won that game 28-21. If you really kind of boiled down to that score, instead of 2 touchdowns. Then you go down to it, of course, Wanda's Lincoln. They beat Wanda's Lincoln 42-14. They beat Edinburgh Vella 31-28. Edinburgh Vella had 2 chances to tie this game up at 31 apiece. And both times missed it by a field goal. Then against the Row Warriors, McAllen Memorial were down for most of that game in the second half as well. They only led, I believe, at the start of the game and really, of course, in overtime. Winning 33-31 in triple overtime is pretty impressive. And then, well, just because you're able to close out that game. And then at Palmview, winning 26-21, where the game, again, felt like McAllen Memorial were on the back foot for the whole time, the back burner for the whole time of that game. And that was big. Valdez was still, of course, your quarterback for McAllen Memorial. Solis was the player of the game. He averaged 198 yards, or he carried 198 yards that game, with Braxton Spates only carrying about 119 yards a game. So, point is, when it's all said and done, McAllen Memorial are a beatable team. let's look at the averages for both sides now. Because Harlingen South seem pretty good. They don't necessarily rush the ball that much. Their key running back, or their key rusher to be exact, Schroyer, about only 73 yards compared to Braxton Spate's 163, 164. And so you can scroll all the way down and really look at, of course, the team comparison, because that's where it really matters with everyone involved. 215.6 rushing yards a game for none other than Harlingen South, so they have an even running game. A pretty decent running game, to be exact, 341.8 total rushing yards for McAllen Memorial. The passing yards a game are 199 passing yards for Harlingen South, 80 passing yards for McAllen Memorial. So they don't pass the ball too much. Receiving yards is 199 receiving yards a game. For Harlingen South, 78 receiving yards for McAllen Memorial. Total yards a game, 415 compared to 421, 422 really for McAllen Memorial, 415 total yards of offense for Harlingen South. Again, these two teams, they produce their offenses very, very well. Scoring averages, once again, not including the overtime for McAllen Memorial. In quarter number 1, 12. In quarter number 2, 3.5. In quarter number 4, check at quarter number 2, 3.5. In quarter number 3, 0. In quarter number 4, 10.5. Harlingen South, in their first quarter, they averaged 5.8, so about 6 points in the first quarter. 3.8 in the second, so about 4 points in the second quarter, and 4.8 points in the third, so about 5 in the third. 6.2 in the fourth. Theirs is 28.7 on average. McAllen Memorial, you erased the 12 points in that overtime period, number 1, or that overtime period in general. You're looking at about the same. This is an even match. Harlingen South, if they were in McAllen Memorial's district, probably get that last playoff spot, but for the whole entire season, we're probably still fighting for a chance at first. Who knows? They could have beaten McAllen Memorial at the time, too, in that district. That's how tight this district is. At 3:03 p.m. here. We have 2 more minutes until we've hit officially the hour mark, as we did start a little late, so we will go that extra 2 minutes. It's been great. But, I mean, those are your 2 games that I truly believe teams can be on upset watch for that whole entire game. McAllen Memorial could definitely lose in the first round with having an undefeated regular season, an undefeated district season, I should say. Due to some things out of their control, unfortunately, but really, of course, the way that they've been struggling for the past 3 weeks, that can tell signs of weakness for this side. We'll see if their mentality has changed or anything like that, because they're that good of a team. They know that they're that good of a team. Coach Patterson knows, but who knows? But who truly knows until you play the game? This is all talk. All those numbers will go out the window in 48 hours or whatever, whenever, of course, kickoff will happen, because we just don't know how that game is going to go, but it's going to be so much fun to watch and witness. Well, I've been Jacob Young. This has been a Rio Sports Live presentation, so we've officially hit the hour mark. We will see you all very soon here for playoff football. Like I mentioned, I'm Jacob Young.